Hello and welcome back to History Talk. Today we're going to be looking at the white paper that Northern Ireland released before the signing deal agreement. So let's head in right now. Hello and welcome back to History Talk. So, the white paper. So, basically, a white paper was introduced. We'll call the white paper, basically, what it introduced was three main things: the Assembly, the Executive, and the Council of Ireland. So, with a border poll showing that there was a majority in favour of remaining within the UK, Whitelaw decided to publish a white paper called Northern Ireland Constitutional Proposals. This white paper stated British government policy on setting up new political structures in Northern Ireland. Now, obviously, the Assembly was the name given to a new parliament for Northern Ireland. Members of the parliament were to be elected by proportional representation rather than first past the post, which is known to be problematic in democracies. It's not really a true democracy if you say, well, you don't have, basically the issue is you can't say, oh, you're not allowed to vote for this person because this person didn't get enough votes, so your vote is dead. So you want to have, proportional representation. So they have the ways you can say, well, yeah, you have that many votes, so yeah, you're able to elect, let's say 5 people, and you're able to elect 8 people, and your 5 people still get to go. So the executive was another part. The executive would form the government of Northern Ireland. It would have the power to legislate on certain matters. They would be transferred from Westminster to the executive. The executive would involve cross-community power sharing, meaning that it would have representatives from both Protestant and Catholic communities. The executive would be formed only if the Secretary of State was satisfied that it would have a widespread support across Northern Ireland. Finally, there was Council of Ireland. The Council of Ireland would be established to promote North-South cooperation. Negotiations on the structure and workings of the Council of Ireland were to take place after the elections to the Assembly. The responses to this white paper were mixed. On the Unionist side, there was the Unionist Party leader, Brian Faulkner. He described it as a constructive document, and though some points could be negotiated further, the man who ran the Vanguard movement, known to be a bit racist towards Catholics, was outright rejected. William Craig did for you. So he felt that it was just, aspects such as power sharing with Catholics and allowing the Irish government to have a say in the affairs of Northern Ireland were seen as unacceptable to him. In protest, his supporters broke away from the UUP, or Ulster Unionist Party, to form their very own party, the VUPP, or the Vanguard Unionist Progressive Party. Yeah, progressive, sure. For similar reasons, the document was also deemed unacceptable by Ian Paisley's DUP. The document was broadly supported by the SDLP, the Alliance Party. This was mainly due to the fact that for the first time in the history of Northern Ireland State, a power-sharing executive would give representation to both nationalists and unionists in government. Because before this, it was just nationalists or unionists in. Next came, and it was generally unionists, Assembly elections in June 1973. The British government proceeded with elections to the new Assembly. These were held on the 28th of June 1973. The results showed that Unionist support for the proposals was divided. Unionists against power sharing won 26 seats, and the members of UUP who supported Faulkner won 24 seats, showing that while, they may have been able to change certain things, the Unionists were certainly not, voting for the people who were pro the agreement. However, the SDLP won 19 seats, establishing them as the main party for nationalists, And the results of centre parties was unfortunately very disappointing, with the Alliance Party winning only 8 seats and the NILP, also known as the Northern Ireland Labour Party, winning only 1 seat. So, while unionists were, mainly, although only by 2 seats, supportive of, against the agreement, because of the SDLP winning the 19 seats, the Alliance Party winning the 8 and the NILP winning the 1, it meant that the first meeting of the Assembly was held in July. Then came the formation of the Executive in November 1973. The next step in the agreement was to negotiate the formation of the power-sharing executive that would govern Northern Ireland. The executive was announced in November 1973 after negotiations at Stormont Castle. It would consist of 6 Ulster Unionist ministers, 4 SDLP ministers, and 1 Alliance Party minister. So, kind of problematic in a way, because that's 6 unionists to 5, not nationalists, but not necessarily, not so unionist. Anyway, so the leader was the chief executive. He was, of course, Brian Faulkner, the UUP leader. The deputy chief executive, which was the deputy leader, was Gerry Fitt, leader of the SDLP. Now comes the Sunningdale Agreement. So, the Sunningdale Conference. The first step in achieving political agreement was to bring together the executive. The British government and the Irish government to agree on the proposed Council of Ireland would function. Negotiations began to take place at a civil service training centre in Sunningdales in Berkshire, England in December 1973. The newly elected Fine Gael Taoiseach, Liam Cosgrove, attended the talks along with Minister for Foreign Affairs, Gareth Fitzgerald, amongst other ministers. Shortly before the talks began, William Whitelaw was unfortunately replaced as Secretary for State for Northern Ireland by Francis Pym. Now this was a very, very stupid thing to do. The Conservative Prime Minister Edward Heath was also in attendance at the conference, and unfortunately, you might think, well, as far as we know, that stupidity is at his door. Anyway, so he was also there with representatives from the UUP, the SDLP, the Alliance Party. So that kind of completed the group that was there. One issue concerning for Unionists was Articles 2 and 3 of the Irish Constitutions. These articles laid claim to Northern Ireland's part of a national territory, which was obviously, kind of undemocratic and most likely put in there by, a little bit, because I've talked about this before, while Ireland did have a civil war, before the Civil War kind of had a bigger root, it kind of, you would have had supporters of the agreement, but they weren't being supportive of the agreement simply because they were like, well, this is the best deal we're going to get. If we continue fighting, we're only, it's like if you slap the deal back at someone, they're just going to go, okay, fine then, no deal then, and they're just going to crush you. Or they're just going to continue battering you until, you either are crushed and you give up, or, they just give you a worse deal. So basically they were saying, well, a lot of them would have said, well, it's just better off doing this deal. Unfortunately, they did. Some must have clearly kept in that feeling, and a lot of people were keeping the feeling. So that was why Articles 2 and 3, 2 and 3, that's pretty bad to have in the top articles, to have that for you in there. It's just kind of, technically it's still a demo. It's not actually, no. This formation of the Northern Irish state wasn't actually a democratic decision, but, by that time, Northern Ireland had a poll on if they wanted to stay in the UK. So, that you might want to think about, removing your, acts that actually breach on, being on anti-democratic. By the way, later they were removed. But at the time they weren't. So unions felt that this threatened their right to self-determination. They wanted reassurance from the Irish government that it accepted that there could be no change to the status of Northern Ireland without the consent of the majority of people in Northern Ireland. Now, obviously, this, to be honest, is perfectly fair for them not necessarily to believe in. I don't think that Ireland really would have done anything, while there would have been people in. I think people, if Ireland would have done anything, it would have been because there were people in the government who were just stupid. There was later on, during the Troubles, there were people who tried to buy guns to arm people during the Troubles. And obviously, that was clearly a lot of those people are very successful members of the government, but still they were somewhat stupid, because it doesn't really make much sense. I mean, Ireland as an army wouldn't have really, if they'd done anything, I don't think it would have succeeded very well, because at the time dependence on Britain was fairly high. Obviously they are, also concerned that greater cooperation between government in the north and the south, such as the Council of Ireland, might eventually lead to Irish unity. Now, as I've said, this is most likely wrong. I doubt the Irish would have actually been able to act on anything, but there was still there that there would have been people who might have tried to act on something. So even though it wouldn't have succeeded, because I don't actually think if the Irish tried to attack or tried to have Irish unity at this time, they would have succeeded. But I understand their fears. Why? Because they can. You might say, "Oh yeah, well that no one would do that." Yeah, but people are actually technically quite stupid in a way. You can see this. There are occurrences in history where people are very close to, very eager to sort of do this thing, and that is a problem, of course, because this leads to their fears. But of course, you can argue. If someone would fail anyway, is there any need to feel fear? Anyway, we'll be talking about the Council of Ireland in the next video, possibly along with other things. We'll talk about the main points of the agreement. These were concluded on the 9th of December, by the way, of 1973. So we'll see you then. And hopefully you'll enjoy this. Hopefully you have enjoyed this episode, and you'll enjoy other episodes of this and other content we create. Please do watch that stuff and do subscribe because it does help, and do view other videos because it does help. Anyway, see you next time.